tragically in my community Sunday as a result of carjackers that hit her car on East 156 in Calcutta. A senseless act of violence directed against the homeowner, a mother, a dedicated employee. I've received a call from her employer, told me what a wonderful employee she was, on her way to church in the city of Cleveland. Killed for no reason at all by criminals. And as I've indicated to the safety director, to the chief, I expect the most severe charges to be placed against those individuals involved in this act on Sunday, and also on the carjacking that led up to this, that took place in another part of the city. So I need to say that on behalf of our citizens. This was an outrageous act, and I was sick on Sunday, and when the safety director called me, got out of bed and went to the scene, and I want to thank the safety director for calling me, notifying me, Director Drummond, and to see her laying on the sidewalk. I just looked up at this guy and asked, good Lord, explain this one to me. Explain this. Why? But none of us know why. But the fact of the matter is, we cannot bring her back, but I want justice for her and her family and her loved ones. So that's it, and I'll look forward to receiving what other additional information I can from the director and the chief on this case. And again, just an outrageous act of violence in our city. So without further, I'll go into the legislation that is before us. Ordinance number 230-2024 by council members Polensek and Griffin, by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety to accept a grant from the United States Department of Justice COPS Office for the fiscal year 23 COPS hiring program for violent crime reduction. How apropos. Came to us on February 26th, 2024. First time reading, approved by Director of Public Safety, approved by Director of Finance. There's no legal objection by the Law Department. The dollar amount is $3,750,000. Director and your support team.
Good morning, Director. I'm sorry. Good morning, Council.
Yes.
Council Chair. With me, we have Dawn, who is our grants coordinator. Art Song, I'm sorry. To my left and to your right, we have Commander Ron Counts, and so Deputy Chief Ali Pillow, and Chief Todd is here as well. She'll be to the table very shortly.
Okay.
I'll go through the legislation as you just read it. If approved by Council, ordinance number 230-2024 would authorize the Director of Public Safety to accept a grant for fiscal year 23 COPS hiring program grant. This grant will provide funding for 30 police officers over 3 years for violent crime reduction, and will pay a portion of their base salaries for 3 years. The purpose of the grant. The goal of the grant is to provide funding for violent crime reduction by assigning 6 additional officers to each of the 5 police districts. The teams will focus on helping the community identify and address criminal activities in their neighborhoods and coordinate with partner agencies and other police units to target high crime areas and suspects. These additional officers in each of the districts will work as a team and will attend community meetings and community events in order to talk to residents and other stakeholders and complete an annual community policing report detailing community policing efforts in each of the districts. Expenses to be reimbursed. Personnel is $8,203,320. That's for the 30 police officers for 3 years. The grant award is $3,750,000. In-kind funds is going to be $4.4 million, which is $4,453,320, which gives us that total share of $8,203,320. The grant period is from October 1st of last year, 2023, through September 30th of 2026. This is a new grant.
Okay. So, Director and Chief and whoever can answer the questions, and to Dawn as well. This is paying a salary of 30 existing officers?
To the chair, Don can answer that much better than I can.
To the chair, these will be 30 newly hired officers.
So this should be a part of the new class that should be coming on?
To the chair, the new class will contain 30 officers from a grant that we received from the COPS office last year, so this will probably be in a following class.
Okay, so again, so this is, this will be coming down the pike. It's not here now, correct?
To the chair.
To the chair, that's correct.
So we're talking that these 30 will come on in late fall?
To the chair, to the councilman, we hope to have another
Okay.
class by midsummer that will be hopefully coming out at the end of the year. And also, it's important to understand with these grants, it says 30 additional officers. What generally happens is we take veteran officers and assign those to those particular units that we're talking about in reference to this particular grant.
Okay, so again, okay, so it won't be the new people going into it. You'll be deployed based on seniority, correct?
To the chair, correct.
Okay, so the 30, I'm trying to get this straight and then open up for questions. So the 30 will not come on, give me a date when we think these new 30 will be on. Give me a date.
So to the chair, this will probably be in midsummer to fall when this next class is processed, that we're currently looking at those applications.
So do the 30 then get moved then while the 30 are in the academy, or do you wait till they graduate?
To the chair when they graduate.
Okay, and you know when you think they're going to graduate?
They would probably not graduate until the first quarter of 2025.
Okay. I'm going to open up for questions. Questions of the committee, or first of all, anybody with comments from the administration? Anyone else here? Questions of the committee? Questions? Any questions at all? And they'll be, no questions of my colleagues. So they're going to be, the 30 will be working on what initiative? Tell us what initiative they'll be working.
So to the chair, the 30 officers will be part of the violent crime reduction team. So they will respond and investigate violent crimes throughout the district. They will be assigned to each of the 5 neighborhood police districts.
Okay. So in a, so you're going to have 6 assigned to each district?
Yes, sir.
Okay. 6 assigned. Okay. And do you have any statistics now as it pertains to the effectiveness of this process now, this unit now?
I can get those for you.
Okay. And Chief, in the future, I'd say anytime we're going to refund a program initiative, if you could bring us data as it pertains to the effectiveness of what we've done. I mean, all of us in the body are greatly concerned about the violent crime, as the administration is. We're all on the same page there. And our citizens are greatly concerned as well. So I just want to make sure that the funding that we're allocating here is being directed in a proper way, and we're having the greatest impact as possible with these grants. And I appreciate the administration, I appreciate Dawn applying for every and all grant that we can. I know there's some things that we've looked at through the National League of Cities, additional programs that I'd like to get some time for you to contact me, because I was looking at what some of these other cities have done. I'd like to talk to you about some of these other initiatives. So, okay, without any further questions, ordinance number 230-2024 is approved as read. Please sign it up. Okay. Let's go into our presentations. Okay. Okay, Director, we have one sign up. Anyone from the public wishing to testify, would please see to my right, the clerk. We need your name, home address, email, and why you want to speak, and you will be given an opportunity to address the body on the issues that are pertaining to public safety or a piece of legislation before us. Okay, update us first. I'm going to jump right into because your folks are at the table here. Update us on the aviation, obviously, and mounted units. Give us some
Okay.
update.
So we'll
Go ahead.
start with the aviation unit.
Sure.
And for that portion, I'm going to have Deputy Chief Pillow and Commander Counts, who oversee Homeland Special Operations,
Okay.
go into that portion.
Okay, go ahead. We don't have any PowerPoint on that,
No,
right?
sir.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning, Council.
Thank you.
To the Councilman through the chair, the aviation unit right now, we have one chopper currently available. It has been up with the recent nice weather we've been having. It's been utilized quite a bit early on this year. The other chopper has been grounded. It is at a facility in Lexington, Kentucky. It is awaiting the refurbishment project in which it'll be shipped somewhere else, and that those repairs and that conversion will be completed. Currently, everything that is necessary for the contract has been taken care of. We're waiting for some acknowledgement from the company itself that they received the last, there's some slight modifications that need to be made to the contract. That has been taken care of, and we are moving forward. We have 3 pilots, and we are seeking additional pilots right now, and we're looking into funding for those other pilots.
To Deputy, and you're an official Deputy Chief now, correct?
That is correct.
You're moving up in the world. I remember when you were a patrol officer. I remember shaking your hand when you became a patrol officer,
Yes, sir.
okay? The unit that's being refurbished in Kentucky, do we have any idea of the length of time?
Ryan, can you?
To the chair, Ron Counts, I'm the commander of
Yes.
Bureau of Homeland Services. So the current plan is we're waiting for execution of the contract, and hopefully within a year that'll be completed. But once the response is received from the vendor, we'll have a better timeline on when that's going to be provided. But we're hoping that definitely at the latest, by end of first quarter next year, that helicopter will be available. In the meantime, we have the one that's currently operating.
So do they physically have the unit, our unit, in possession?
To the chair, yes, it's physically waiting for the final approval so it can join the other aircraft that they're currently upgrading from other cities.
Okay. So you think, again, first quarter next year?
And to the chair, again, we're looking at confirmation from the vendor, and we'll receive a timeline at that time.
Is this the vendor that had filed bankruptcy?
To the chair, actually, the parent corporation was involved in that. They're out of that right now. And our facility is actually certified by that parent company to do the repairs, and they've done an outstanding job according to all the other cities that recently have done work there.
So you're confident that we'll get our unit rebuilt, and back up in the air first quarter next year?
To the chair, we're hoping first quarter. Again, we'll be
Okay.
getting that information shortly.
Okay. So based on Deputy Chief's comment and based on yours, the one helicopter we have now is flying, correct?
To the chair, that's correct. It's operational fully.
How often does it fly?
Let's see, we have Towards the end of last year, we started picking up because we had a light winter.
Yes.
Typically, when we have overcast, low ceiling conditions, high winds, high
Right.
precipitation, it reduces their flight ability. So they've been able to fly a number of events and some of our crime initiatives. So that's helped significantly, including some recent events that have occurred in the last 60 days. If I look at it, they have 2,037 special attention missions, 47 runs handled in the last year, and hours flown is 181. Again, looking at one airframe instead of two,
Yes.
and that's been pretty good. And they're going to be increasing that for this year in 2024.
Were they up on Sunday?
That's correct, they were.
Okay. So the question is, when the pursuit took place on Sunday by Euclid, was CPD notified of the pursuit? Do we know?
To the chair, generally speaking, I'll have to get to that precise answer, but generally speaking, when there's a pursuit that starts in a different jurisdiction and they come into our jurisdiction here in Cleveland, typically what happens is their dispatchers get in touch with our dispatchers and notify us of the pending or incoming pursuit.
Are we aware if we were notified or not?
To the chair, I can get you that specific answer.
I'd like to know that for a fact, because that's been a question posed to me by residents in the community. If there was a pursuit coming out of Euclid, were we notified, and was there an opportunity to get the helicopter on the scene? That was a big question, and it remains a question with me as well. I was one of the people, as maybe the chief can recall, the safety director, I was one of the members of this body that fought years ago to get the helicopters, to get an aviation unit. And we worked over the years, and finally we were very happy when it was established. And unfortunately, it has declined substantially because, again, a lack of officers assigned, and then issues with maintenance and everything else. But at the end of the day, there's these ongoing concerns as it pertains to pursuits, as it pertains to apprehension, to better facilitate our folks. Again, National League of Cities, I'm looking at cities that are utilizing drones more effectively, maybe in some cases even getting away or moving away from actually manned units, but going with drones because they can physically deploy them better throughout the city, their cities or municipalities. So I think these are all things that we need to look at. But I want to know for sure on Sunday, were we notified of that pursuit, and did we have the opportunity to utilize the helicopter in that case? And it's a tragedy, but again, I'm not losing sight of the fact of who caused it. I'm not going to lose sight of that, of who caused it. It wasn't men and women in blue. It was the criminals who brought about that fatal accident. So the other question on the aviation unit that has been posed to me is why do we have to have police officers? Why do we have to have uniformed police officers operating? I understand in some other cities they don't have uniformed police officers. They have trained and certified pilots that work in coordination with I would call OPATA-trained police officers in the state of Ohio. But we're in this thing, we've got to put officers up. And I'm hearing that is not the case. That's not the case across the country. So can someone educate?
To the chair, the officer doesn't have to be the one flying. There has to be an officer occupying inside the helicopter, and the reason being is to identify the criminal acts that occur and be able to testify in that information.
Is that a state statute?
So it's just part of law enforcement. If you look at the red light cameras, so the whole issues
Okay.
with those. The whole point of that is an officer had to witness the violation to be able to testify to that criminal activity.
Okay.
And it's the same concept with the use of the helicopter. An officer has to observe the criminal activity that occurred to be able to testify to that.
Okay. So When we're talking about filling positions, are we talking about sworn officers, or are we talking, when you mentioned pilots, are we talking
Pilots.
civilian pilots?
Civilian pilots, sir.
Okay. And we're looking to hire how many?
That would be based on, we'd have to reassess our needs once we get the other chopper back and how often that we're flying.
Do you have a civilian pilot flying the one we have now?
Yes,
There's a civilian pilot.
he's a former police officer, but yes,
Okay. And then you have another officer assigned to fly with him?
yes.
There's a-
What we refer to as a spotter, yes.
So you have, you said 3, correct? 3 people assigned right now?
Yes,
Okay.
3 pilots.
So when we get the unit back, hopefully, we're trying to assign how many people to the aviation unit?
In an ideal situation with the 2 choppers, we'd like to have 4 to 5 pilots.
Okay. Civilians.
Well, we
Or
look
officers.
both internally and externally.
Okay.
To the
All-
chair,
all
we
I'm-
try to have both civilian as well as
Okay.
police officers.
But you
and
understand
pilots.
where we're at. We're trying to get as many men and women in blue in the streets.
Absolutely.
And so I understand if we had the sheer numbers where you could assign people to the aviation units, one thing. But where we can utilize civilians, I think, again, I'm looking at what other cities are doing. We need to look at where we can utilize civilian folks, every place we can, and put that police presence out in our neighborhoods where it's really needed. That's where we need it. We need a presence in our neighborhood. So I'm stopping there. Questions of the committee, Councilman Slife?
Just to put a final point on the question about the staffing. So just to make sure I'm clear through the chair, the ideal staffing is 4 to 5 in the aviation unit, which is a combination of civilians and uniformed officers, pilots, and spotters.
So when I said, I'm sorry, to the councilman through the chair, 4 to 5 pilots
Okay.
is what would be ideal.
And then how many spotters? Are those assigned positions, or does that rotate through, or? Yeah.
So through the chair to the council member, that would be dependent on if those pilots were sworn officers or not.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Questions? Councilman Kelly?
It's funny because I was at the polls yesterday and I got a lot of questions about the helicopters. Most of them have been answered. First of all, thank you. My residents told me to make sure I tell you thank you for your service, so I appreciate each and every one of you. How many are in the plane? Is there 2 in the plane then? Or,
Through the chair to the council member, that's
okay,
correct.
so there's 1 pilot and then there's 1, what you call the spotter.
Spotter.
If the pilot is a police officer, you still have the second person in the plane?
Through the chair to the council member, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions of the committee as it pertains to the aviation unit?
Shout out Al Chonka.
Okay. Let's move on to the mounted unit. Give us an update on mounted.
So, Mr. Chair, there was the incident that occurred where the 2 horses did escape from the enclosure at the mounted unit. That has since been remedied. The repairs have been made to make sure the horses can't get out. We actually saw footage of the horses attempting again to use the same method to try to escape. You know, I hate to sound blunt, but he uses his butt to lift up the gate, and then he kicked it and was able to open it. So that's been repaired. We currently have 6 horses at the mounted unit. We have 4 members assigned, but we only currently have 2 riders. We have an anticipated assignment out to replace, or to add 2 additional riders to the mounted unit. And that should hopefully, be completed and selected within the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Are officers assigned or they apply based on seniority?
So it's a mixture of 2. It's a seniority pick and management pick, and that's by the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay. So 6 horses, 2 riders, 2 horses still trying to escape. Okay. I'm sure you are aware that Cleveland had at one time one of the largest mounted units in the country. I believe it was 46 or 47 officers assigned to the mounted traffic unit at one time. So we've gone completely different direction from what we once had. We had talked, and I mentioned it recently to the director, I had talked to former safety director, former Chief McGrath years ago about looking into the possibility of creating an auxiliary mounted unit. And I did base that off of what I saw in University Circle. I was in University Circle one day, and I saw people on horses in University Circle. And I stopped one of them, and I said, "What are you doing up here?" And they said, "We volunteer, and we walk in the University Circle areas in connection with," then it was University Circle Police. And I thought it was an interesting approach and visibility, and it was just well-liked. People were going up to the folks, and I thought, why not try this from a standpoint of creating a mounted auxiliary unit to coincide and work with our folks. I'm going to ask you, Chief, officially, I'm going to ask you to look into the possibility of that creation. We have auxiliary police officers now that work in coordination with our men and women in blue. In fact, we allocated, as you're aware, an additional $100,000 in this budget to support our auxiliary police, our men and women who are volunteering. I'm asking you to look into the possibility. If somebody has a horse and they want to, and we would house that horse, and then they would have to volunteer so many hours a month or whatever to work in connection with our people. I'm just asking you to take a look at it. I mean, I just think it's a novel approach, and again, I think we have to think out of the box today, more so than ever before in the city. So again, I will ask you to take a look into the possibilities. There could be liabilities. There might be opportunities. We have 6 horses. We only have 2 riders. If we get 4 people to volunteer to work with us and is willing to go through the auxiliary police training and do everything they need to do, is that a possibility? So I'm going to leave it at that. Questions of the mounted unit? Councilman Slife.
Yes, just more so for the listening audience, I think there are people who question the value of the mounted unit in 2024. I think it'd just be a good opportunity to explain to the residents of Cleveland why we have a mounted unit.
So, through the chair to the council member, there's a variety of reasons for the mounted unit. I'm going to say first and foremost, community policing. When you see those horses, the impact that they make in the communities is just overwhelming. It's always a positive response. Animals lighten the situation, and no matter where they ride, they're recognized throughout the city, and they're continuously approached, to have that community engagement. So first and foremost, that would be the primary purpose of the mounted unit. Secondary to that, they are also used in some of our protest activities or special events. The horses, given the size and the training that they receive, they can be utilized to, redirect crowds. They're not used in, any capacity, physical capacity, but, it's a large animal, and people tend to get out of the way when they have that animal coming towards them. So those are the predominant reasons for having and maintaining that mounted unit, but the community aspect is really the overwhelming portion for that.
Okay, any other, Councilman? Councilman Slife, any other questions? Okay, Councilman Starr.
Thank you, Dean, and thank you for the members coming today. My question I will be asked is, I know a lot of changes have been going on with regard to finding a new home for the mounted unit stable. Can we get an update on what's the status of looking for different sites throughout the city of Cleveland for us to be able to add the mounted unit? Also, I remember there was discussion about possibly cost and pricing and how much land is needed to upgrade that. And the reason why I asked that, obviously, it was some things going on in Ward 5 where we wanted to move the mounted unit, and some residents had some reservation about the location. So what I'm trying to get is, obviously, we know that we're talking about the fact that some horses broke loose, and just thinking about, my neighborhood, I don't want to see residents trying to get a horse and try to make it his pet. Last year I dealt with, in one of the units, somebody had like a wolf, and they were keeping it as a pet, and we had to go out there to figure out what was going on. So what I wanted to know is, as far as the updates regarding the mounted unit and possibly relocation to a new site, where are we at as far as looking at land, and what is the timetable to figure out what is next, through the chair?
Director, Chief?
So through the chair to council member, I have a meeting next week with the city's administration just on that subject. We are at nowhere right now. So we don't have a location, we don't have an expected timeline, cost. We're kind of back at the beginning. But I'm going to work with them to develop a new plan moving forward so that we can find a permanent location.
Okay, and through the chair, to Chief, Commander, right? Let me make sure, Chief. I gotta make sure I say it right.
Chief.
I told you again, it'd be a lot going on.
This
but-
is her second meeting.
Second meeting, yeah. That was my commander. But anyway, through that process, do we have like an idea how many acres of land are you needed? And also through the chair, are we working with city planning to be able to locate different sites? I know MOCAP has been doing some work, but also is city planning involved through the chair?
To the chair, to Councilman Starr, that's part of the process that Chief Todd is talking about, sitting down, sitting planning, as well as MOCAP and so forth, and determining the acreage and those type of things to make sure we have the right land, right location, the right acreage and so forth. So that's something that we're going to talk about. We're just not there right now to give you, and it's pretty much starting from square one, to be honest with you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions on the mounted unit? One of the things that I think part of the discussion we had last time was that there was this debate whether it needed to be close to downtown or not. And I'm of the opinion it needs to be close to downtown. Because we're to utilize the horses the most for special events downtown, for sporting events, whatever the case, festivals, all the things that we associate with downtown, but also the ability where we can also store the vehicles, because I can recall when the mounted unit would come out and patrol our parks and playgrounds, which I thought was a real positive thing. I heard nothing but positive comments from residents, parents, kids, and when they would come out and just the horses would walk through our parks and playgrounds, and then in some of our commercial districts as well. So I'd like to hopefully get back to that someday, where we can see that transpire, that interaction with the citizens. But I've long maintained this area to the east of the FBI headquarters, which the city of Cleveland owns, most of that land up there. To me, I don't understand why we're not looking over there, right there. That was a site that was kicked around for the police headquarters, and I'm hoping that you're going to take a good look at that area again. Just to the east of the FBI headquarters, we own a bunch of the property over there, and I think we've got to figure out how to make it as effective as possible, visibility, and then again, where we can start to interact with our residents once again, schools, et cetera. Any other questions of the mounted unit? If not, we're going to move on to fire. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Division of Fire. I got you.
See you. Good job. Great job. Sam, you shouldn't do so much talk. You shouldn't do so much talk. I know. I'll see you later.
Welcome, Chief, to the table, and your team. You want to identify or have them introduce themselves?
To the chair, to my right, we have the fire division, the chief, Luke, and his staff. I'll have them introduce themselves.
Thank you.
Chair, good morning.
Good morning,
Chief,
Chief.
feeling better?
Much better. Much
With me today, I have the Fire Marshal, Dave Telbin. I'm sure you've all interacted with him. And then my Chief of Staff, Brad Engelhardt.
Okay, Chief, explain to us the issue of fire prevention, the section of fire prevention, inspections, especially for commercial and multifamily structures. There's been some questions, some issues raised, some concerns raised, and explain to us the process. We have multifamily, we have apartment buildings across the city of Cleveland, we have commercial structures, we have special events. I've seen some of the information pertaining to some of the inspectors as it pertains to overtime. So one of the questions we're going to pose as well, when the Division of Fire is assigning personnel to the Brown Stadium, the Rocket Mortgage Field House, I think it's called Rocket Field, right? And the Guardians facility, do they pay for any of that?
To the chair, if we can, to kind of just
Okay.
lay a foundation.
Sure,
if we
go
can,
ahead.
Can we have Chief Luke and the staff go through the PowerPoint presentation? I
okay,
think that will lay the foundation for
I
us
didn't even
and
see
maybe
that.
answer some of the questions that you guys may
That's
have.
that's better,
So
yeah.
we'll start with that, and then we'll get into.
Okay, now wait a minute, let us download it.
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you got?
So we'll start with the presentation.
Fire-
We have
there
copies
we
as
go.
well
Thank
for
you.
everyone as well.
Thanks, Chief.
And then we'll go through the PowerPoint presentation, and
Okay,
Chief Luke and his
Chief,
staff will
get
be more than willing to answer any questions.
Good. There we go. Okay. Chief, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, council members.
Good morning.
This PowerPoint presentation will give you a broad overview of the operation of the Fire Prevention Bureau and also should address some of the questions that came up as part of the media presentations
Yes.
over the past couple months. So this first slide addresses the staffing, how the Fire Prevention Bureau is staffing, and the ranks of the employees within the Bureau. Right now, we have 21 uniformed members assigned to the Bureau with 2 civilian employees. All of the employees are segregated into their different specialties. So many times when you hear we have 21 members assigned to the Bureau, the thought is we have 21 fire inspectors out there every day. That's actually not the case. We have 12 employees who do the basic fire inspections, and then the remainder of the employees have their separate specialties, whether it's hazmat, plans review, or even a records clerk.
Chief, do they all work out of one location?
Yes, they work out of fire headquarters at 1645 Superior.
Okay, fire headquarters, okay.
And then, but we also have it's only one inspector, so we have one inspector assigned as a liaison with building housing.
Okay.
And they work, some of their office hours is over here in City Hall with building housing.
Okay, good. Okay, keep going.
The next slide just gives you the overall mission of the Fire Prevention Bureau. This is also, the thing I want to highlight with this slide is that we only have jurisdiction in commercial occupancies. We do not have any jurisdiction in residential occupancies. So with commercial occupancies also includes high-rise apartment buildings because those are for-profit. But in your regular 2.5-story residence, we do not have jurisdiction in those buildings. So when you're talking fire inspection, these are in commercial occupancies within the city.
So as it pertains then to a high-rise apartment, you have no,
Yes, because the high-rise apartment building is viewed as a for-profit because they are renting out,
yeah,
we do have jurisdiction in that building.
okay, thank you, thank you. Keep going.
The next slide goes over the business services that we offer within our mandate.
Okay,
On the left side of the slide, it shows the types of inspections that we do. On the right side, it shows the types of permits. On both of these areas, these are general categories. In each area, there's subcategories of it. Because the type of permits, we have an abundance of permits we do, but they can be segregated into these listing right here. So as you see on the types of inspections, this is also maybe a confusion on how we operate. The general idea that's usually presented to me is that we have inspectors that go out and do a universal inspection one time annually in every building in the city of Cleveland. That is not how we've operated. That's not ever how we've operated. The way it is set up, say like for a building, this building right here, City Hall. This building has numerous fire suppression systems. You have a fire alarm system. You have a fire sprinkler system. You might have a fire standpipes. You've got fire doors. We've got entry-exit ways. All those are tied to a specific fire permit. So like for your fire alarm system, per the fire code, has to be permitted annually. When that permit occurs, that's done by a third-party vendor, comes out on site, and we have to have one of our certified inspectors here on site when that occurs.
So the third-party vendor, who retains them? Do we retain them, or who retains them?
The business owner retains it.
Okay,
The business owner retains it. The vendor will contact us and say they have a permit inspection on this date, and then
Okay.
we have to have an inspector on site for that whole process to occur.
so is that actually in the codified ordinances that they have to retain that?
That is covered under the state fire code,
Okay,
and it comes down
okay.
through into, that's what we operate under.
So if I'm Key Tower, so if I'm Key Tower, I'm going to contract with somebody to do that,
Yes,
correct?
that is correct.
Okay,
And that's a mandate, the fire marshal just informed me, that's a mandate of their certificate of occupancy. That's a part of.
for the entire building?
Yes.
Okay, okay, good, that's good to know. Keep
So
going.
the same thing is with the standpipes. The same thing is with the sprinkler systems. Those are all tied to a specific permit. And when those systems are inspected, we have to be on site,
Okay,
and that's how that process works. So for any occupancy, we have certified inspectors on site several times a year.
so for the viewing public, explain briefly what a standpipe is.
A standpipe is in any commercial structure, usually above 4 or 5 stories, in the hallways, the stairwells, you'll see red piping going up
Okay.
the wall. That piping is so if a fire occurs in that occupancy on a floor above the first floor, we don't have to stretch our hose line up the stairwell. We can just hook into the standpipe on the first floor, it pumps water up, and then we connect on any floor, so the 38th floor, we can go up to the 38th floor and connect to the standpipe, and we'll have access to water.
So all apartment buildings should have that?
Yes.
Okay, okay,
And you have dry systems and wet systems. In a wet system, the pipe is always filled with water. In a dry system, we have to pump into it.
okay, gotcha. Keep going.
So on the type of permits, you see we got fire protection alarm,
Yep.
fire protection water base, hazardous substance, underground tank, special effects, and the emergency rapid entry system is normally called the Knox boxes. That's what the box you put your keys in, you'll see on the outside of buildings. Each one of these is tied to an inspection type also. So anytime a permit is issued, we're on site to issue that permit, and a certified inspector is there.
Okay, keep going.
The next slide just goes over the general way that our permits and our fees collected works. So on the left side, you see all of these permits. For 2023, we had 2,866 permits, and we took in just under $1 million, $934,000. That represented a 6% increase from the previous year.
Okay,
We've been fortunate, even going through COVID, our permit revenues coming in have been slightly increasing year over year.
do, with regard to trains passing through the city carrying hazardous waste and materials, is there any notification to the division? No?
No, there's no notification to that. When the issue down in East Palestine occurred,
Yes.
there was a lot of talk at the state level that they were trying to get some legislation passed where when the trains do come through, they would have to notify us.
Right.
I got information from that through the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association. I'm not aware right now where that is at.
Yeah. Was that was state pending legislation, or?
I don't know if it was pending legislation or it was
Okay.
legislation that they were trying to push through the state.
Because I know, as my colleagues, we're all aware that National League of Cities, there's been a big concern about rail safety and about the fact that we have these trains coming through urban areas, and when they derail, as we've seen, in most cases, they're derailing in populated areas, and of great concern to not only the surrounding community, but to our emergency rescue folks, our first responders, as to what they're being confronted with. Because now we're learning, as you indicated, in East Palestine, that the state officials were not given a total picture of the conditions that existed down there. So, on all these permits, these are where we have to physically go out and inspect.
For almost every permit that we issue, we have to put an inspector on site to issue that permit.
So just educate us all. Explosives. What type of explosives are we looking at?
Okay, when they're talking about explosives, like, sorry, I'm Captain Talbot, Fire
Yes.
Marshal. All right, when we're talking about explosives, there's a dangerous ordinance and the explosive permit. The dangerous ordinance would be at the steel mill. Every periodically, they have to blast out the slag in their
Okay.
apparatus. So they bring in explosives for that. And what we do is we meet them at the city border with a CPD officer, and we escort them to their location, lights and sirens, so there's no interruption on their trip. Also, the salt mine gets 3 deliveries a week, pretty much almost 52 weeks a year, to handle their mining operation.
Okay.
So that would be as far as the explosives. And then there's also fireworks displays. Anytime there's a fireworks display and they travel through our city, we escort them through to the location, and then we oversee the setup and use and then the takedown of the hazard.
I appreciate that. You're educating us, which is gives us a broader view of the responsibilities of the Division of Fire. Thank you. Continue.
On the next slide, that's listed as high-rise occupancies.
Yes.
Currently, there are 16,884 commercial structures listed within the city of Cleveland. 281 of those are considered high-rise. For the Division of Fire, what we consider high-rise is any structure 7 stories or above.
Does that include residential?
Yes.
Okay.
So in these type structures, I'm listing below that, it shows us for the standpipe inspection. By state code or the fire code, they're required to be inspected every 5 years.
Okay.
The automatic sprinklers is annually. The alarm system, the fire alarm system, is also annually. And each time these are inspected, we have an inspector on site. What we ask the inspectors to do, if you think about a high-rise building and all the high-rise systems, all the systems in a high-rise buildings with, technology now,
Yes.
they're all computer controlled. So if an inspector was to go out there and attempt to do just an overall universal inspection for a high-rise building and inspect all the systems, all the floors, it would probably take weeks because he or she would have to go through every floor. If you think in a high-rise building, they'll have hundreds of detection devices because each smoke detector, each carbon monoxide detector, each fire alarm pull station, each fire entry door. So that's not how we operate. We're on site for permit-related inspections. But as we have the inspectors on site, we ask them to do as much as they can while they're there. So an inspector may be on site for, say, like a fire alarm system permit inspection, but he's either waiting for the vendor to arrive on site or before his next appointment, he has maybe a couple hours. So then he or she'll look through the rest of the building and try to do more. In the course of an entire year, we have covered all buildings. All these systems are covered. So that's what I wanted to basically get the information out here. The way we inspect buildings are guided by our permits. It's not really guided by the specific address, and we're going out to this building today to do the inspection, and then for the rest of the year or that time period, we're not out there anymore. And you also have the situation where if we get an incident response in a building, say for a medical or a fire-related event, while the officers are out there, they'll look around and see if they see any problems within the building. Just earlier this week, on a high-rise building, one of the officers noted some stuff. He referred that down to the Fire Prevention Bureau. The Fire Prevention Bureau sent an inspector on site, and they're handling that right now.
So, just point of information. So let's just say 123 East 156th Street, the Euclid Beach Villa Apartments, Euclid Beach Club Residence. You could tell me when the last time your folks were out there to inspect that?
Yes.
Okay. As you could tell any member of council as it pertains to a specific address,
Yes.
high-rise? Okay. And that's standpipe is in 5 years, automatic sprinkler is annual, and alarm system is annual.
Yes.
Okay.
That is correct, Chair.
Now, for the high-rise buildings, do they have to hire somebody as well to do something?
Yes. For all of these inspections, they have to hire a certified and licensed inspector from the third-party vendor.
Including residential?
Yes.
Okay.
Because you're talking about the high-rise residential.
Okay?
Yes.
I'm just trying
Yes,
to
you're
better
correct.
understand. Okay, keep going.
The next slide is about our recreation centers.
Yes,
There was a question of whether the recreation centers were being inspected.
yes.
As of this date, all of the recreation centers in the city of Cleveland are inspected. That's a regular practice that we do.
Yeah.
We work with the Department of Property Management on the recreation centers. The inspections that we have conducted to this point, we have found some issues that need to be worked on, and they're implementing a plan to do it. This also lends into how we deal with violations or citations. When an inspector comes out and say he finds 5 or 6 things that need some work or are wrong with occupancy, we don't automatically issue a citation or violation. What we do is we engage in a conversation with the building owner. These are the inadequacies that we found in your occupancy, and this is the remedy that we need you to do to take care of it. Normally, we give them 30 days. At the end of that 30 days, we'll have an inspector back on site to see if it's remedied. On some things that can happen, say it's a major renovation that needs to be done, like with a fire alarm system, we'll engage with the property owner to implement a plan to fix this. If the property owner follows along to our satisfaction and we can maintain citizen and resident safety, there is no violation or citation ever issued. The only time we issue violations and citations is when we can't get compliance with the owner. That's when we issue a violation or citation.
Are there any city buildings, rec centers, city buildings, that are not in compliance?
Yes, yes, sir, there are.
There are. And the city, the Department of Public Works is aware of that?
We work with property management, right? Yeah, we work with Commissioner Nagle and property management to implement a plan, because a lot of times this requires them to engage in contracts, them to engage in
Okay.
external vendors. And to this point, they've never been non-cooperative with us. They are extremely cooperative, and we don't have any city building where we had a problem and we can't get this building in compliance.
Okay. So you're telling us at the table right now, there's no city building, rec center, police station, et cetera, where there is an imminent problem or issue?
If you define imminent as where the city residents being in that building today are in any imminent threat, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay. I'm not only talking Cleveland Route, I'm talking about city employees as well.
Yes, city employees also.
Okay. Okay. Continue.
On the next slide, it's about hotels and airports. In some recent media, it was stated that the Division of Fire didn't have any records of inspections in hotels. Hotels are covered under the jurisdiction of the state fire marshal. We do not have jurisdiction locally over the hotels. The state fire marshal sends up their own inspectors to conduct those inspections. Now, if they find a violation, a serious violation in a hotel within a city, they will notify us.
Do you have a point, Councilman, or you want to just on the list?
But I had a point.
Okay, what's
The
your
point is, so as far as hotel, we have to wait to the state fire marshal do their inspections in order for anything to find if they're in compliance or not?
Well, I
Through the
would,
chair?
through the chair to the council person, I wouldn't frame it as we have to wait. The state fire marshal normally inspects hotels and other occupancies within the state on a recurring basis also, just like we do. It's just that we legally do not have jurisdiction over hotels.
So, and to that point, Chair, is there something we can do to ensure that we are inspecting it as well? Because, I mean, if the state is doing it, who's to say the state has done it as often as, or as frequently as possible? And if you're thinking about an entire state department, and we're talking locally, is there something we can put together to figure out if other cities are doing it themselves in each city, as well as the state, or something like that, through the chair?
So on the councilman's point, who keeps the records? Is there a state office you would go to? Say,
Yes.
how many times has the Marriott been inspected?
Yeah, the State Code Enforcement Office. Actually, when the news broke, I asked, I had some addresses that
Right.
they were requesting, and I called, and they sent me all the annual reports, and they asked me how many years you want to go back.
And that's the state fire marshal?
Yeah, State Fire Marshal's
Okay.
Office, the Code Enforcement Section.
Okay.
They're the ones that go out and
Okay.
do the inspections.
Thank you.
And generally, when they do their inspections, if, you know, a lot of times they find things that they can mitigate immediately on the
Yes.
spot, and they sign off on those as corrective actions. And anything that is beyond that, they notify my office, and we have inspectors out there, and we take it from there and make sure that they come back into compliance.
Thank you. Continue. By the way, I have Councilman Start on. Anyone else would like to be on the list, please let me know. Councilman Slide.
Okay, additionally on this slide concerning airports, the same assertion was made with the Hopkins and Berkeley Lakefront Airport. Currently, those facilities are inspected by the Airport Rescue and Firefighting Division under Port Control. The Division of Fire does not do inspections on those facilities.
Okay. So if we were to ask, if one was to ask, as it pertains to an inspection report, we would ask for Port Control for that then, correct? If
That-
they would tell us when they last inspected?
That would be under Port Control. And
Right.
the reason for that is to go on the majority of airport property, you have to have special clearance
Yes.
and special permissions, which we don't normally have.
Yeah, okay.
So they are stationed out there, so they are the ones that are tasked with inspecting those facilities.
So do they keep their own records, or do they share those records with the Division of Fire? How is that? Do you have access to that?
They keep their own records on site. If there's anything in question, you know, I can request that from them. But as well, anything that is above their expertise, they always
Right.
call us to come in and help them as far as
Right.
like hazmat,
Right.
spills, things like that that happen on the property.
Right.
We work together quite a bit.
Yeah. Are they part, they're a separate enterprise fund, but are the officers out there, are they part of the Division of Fire?
No.
To the
They're
chair,
totally
no.
separate.
To the
So
chair.
separate.
Yeah,
Totally
to the chair.
separate.
Yep.
Okay. So they are hired separately. They don't go through their normal hiring process as the Local 93 does.
Correct.
Okay. Continue. Thank you.
On the next slide, this is about our public assembly details. There was, or there might be some confusion about what these specifically are. Public assembly details are when a assembly venue, say like Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, Brown Stadium, has an event. If the fire alarm system activates during that event, they are by law mandated, they have to dump the entire facility. What a public assembly detail does is we give them a variance during these hours. We put the fire alarm system into what we call manual bypass mode. That means the system is working as normal, except if it goes off, it will not alert the entire facility. It only alerts at the alarm panel. We put our inspectors on site monitoring that alarm panel and monitoring the facility. So if that alarm panel activates, they then immediately investigate to determine, is this a false alarm or is this an actual alarm where we need to have a response? We really don't trust the venue owner to do that because you're getting into a conflict of interest. So by state law, we can have them, they pay for our inspectors to be on site for the benefit of not having to evacuate the entire facility if the alarm panel goes off.
So let's pin that down. So the Browns, Rocket Field House, the Guardians, they are paying specifically for that inspector to be on site.
Yes, for the Browns, okay, say a Browns game. We have 12 inspectors in the building. We have one in the fire command panel, watching the panel. We have 3 doing hazmat that are checking air quality through the building throughout.
Yes.
We have equipment set up.
Yes.
We have 2 that are there for the pyro, okay? I'm in the basement in the command room in case of any issues, and I'm watching the screens, watching all the flow of traffic, making sure that there
Yeah.
isn't any egress issues in any way, nothing's blocking anything. And then the rest of the guys, there's another 5 guys that are manually walking around. There's one assigned to each quadrant with one roving lieutenant that walks around the building throughout the whole game. Anything that we get or we see in the command room gets dispatched out to the guys, they check it out, and so forth.
So how many is for the Browns?
The Browns, we have 12 personnel in the building for the game.
What about Cavs?
Cavs game, we have 4. We have 2 for life safety and 2 for the pyrotechnics that they do.
And then Guardians?
Guardians, we have 3. We have 2 that are in the building, and we have 1 that's for the pyrotechnics, or the explosions or the fireworks at the home runs and that type
Okay.
of thing.
So the charge for that, the charge for the deployment of the for the 19 people who are working the 3 sports venues, that revenue, well, first of all, what is the charge? It's an hourly charge?
Well,
How-
it's $83.58, and there's a 4-hour minimum.
Yeah.
Comes off, so that's $332.34 per inspector
Right.
for the 4 hours. Most events are around that time frame, and then,
Yeah.
if it goes beyond the 4, then it's $83.58 per hour after that.
So then how is that revenue directed to the city?
Okay, my office manager handles all the invoicing for each event, because he collects all the pay
Right.
sheets and everything, and he sends an invoice over to the venues, who in turn send their checks into our office, which gets processed and put into the general fund.
So where would that show up in the budget, in fire?
I don't know if it does. I'm doing,
You would see that under fire, under our permits.
Under permits, that's where it would be?
Yes.
Okay, we'll take a look at that.
if you go back to this slide with the permits on it,
Yeah,
if you see the miscellaneous FMIS, when they set this up, that large
what
number-
page, well, we're gonna,
On
okay.
under the 2023
Okay.
operations,
Wait a minute.
if you look at the last
Okay, let me
line
look.
in that table,
Okay,
All those monies are in that has the PADs, it has the licensing, group homes,
So-
daycares, all that's in
so
that
the
area.
$749,000, that would be, those funds would be a part of
A
that?
good portion of that, yes.
Okay, okay. So are the teams up to date on their payments?
Yeah, I think at the last they were at 98% paid. I think the last bit was what was still just
Okay.
happening.
So you have 12 for the Browns. You've got 4 for the Cavaliers. It seems like you would have more for an indoor facility for the Cavaliers in light of,
Well, a lot of the events, they're only level 3, level 5 is closed for a lot of the hockey events.
Oh, okay.
Cavaliers games, the system, There's usually one in the fire alarm or fire control panel room and one person walking around in case if they
Okay.
get called anything. Plus, then the building has a position called a BME. They're kind of like their repair guys.
Yeah.
They have probably about a dozen of those guys out there who also respond to anything that
Yeah.
if we were to come, and we kind of oversee it.
And then, why only 3 for the guardians?
We have 2 in the building that walk and one up on the roof with the fireworks guy.
Okay, and that's sufficient?
Yes, yeah, because we only need, we have 2, we have 4 at the arena because the scoreboard with the flames and all that, we need 2 people on opposite sides because you can't see the whole area from one vantage point. At the Indians or Guardians rather, they have, everything's in one location, so
Okay.
one person can oversee
Okay.
it. Now fireworks night, that bumps up. We have more personnel there for fireworks night, and we also send down a fire apparatus with 4 additional personnel.
So the PADs are for explosives, pyrotechnics, and hazmat?
And any event.
Okay. So when you say any event, what do you
Well,
mean?
an event in the venue, Browns game, Guardians game,
Okay.
Cavs game, Monsters
Yeah,
game,
okay.
fireworks show.
Okay. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, Severance Hall is another one.
Okay. Keep going.
Okay, the next slide just expands on the public assembly details.
Yes.
That the public assembly details are required to be staffed by certified bureau inspectors. So, say a normal firefighter in a division is not allowed to staff these details because they don't have the training.
Yes.
It also states that the way we staff these details, we require that they have to be staffed by off-duty members so that we're not creating a situation where city tax dollars are supporting a for-profit operation, meaning city tax dollars is paying for the fire marshal to be work during 8 to 4, and he's on a PA detail during that time where we're then charging them.
Okay, so you're saying of the firefighters or the officers that are assigned, the 19, they are all off duty?
All off duty.
All off duty. Okay. But we're paying them.
If we were to have an on-duty officer do a PAD
Right.
and then bill the venue
Okay.
for those hours,
Yeah.
the city would basically be in a position where they're making a profit off of this operation. That's why we require all the assigned officers to be off-duty, so when we bill the venue, when that money comes in, they're paying for those officers to be on site.
Okay. Okay. Okay, keep going.
As far as presentation, I just added some of the challenges that the Fire Prevention Bureau is going through. I didn't want to present that, we're beyond reproach or beyond,
Yeah.
critical review. One of the major challenges that we're going through is through our data management. Prior to 2008, all of our occupancy data is on hard copy file folders. They're in the basement of headquarters, in file cabinets. It takes up almost the entire basement of headquarters. And we are currently attempting to get that digitized so that we can make all that information digital. The reason we need to make that information digital is when an inspector is on site of a building, say a building that was built in the 1940s or 1950s. That inspector needs access to all of that historical information while they're doing that inspection. The way it currently is, the inspector either has to do research before he goes out, or they have to come back to fire headquarters to do research, and it just makes the inspections a lot longer than they should be.
Okay.
The data between 2008 to 2018 is on one software system as shown. 2018 to 2021 is on another software system, and then 2021 to present is on even another software system.
But it was my understanding, and I'm trying to jog my memory here, we passed legislation to digitize
Yes.
everything?
We recently got legislation for the digitization.
Right.
We are now in the process of getting contracting.
Okay.
We're trying to do an RFP to get the contract done.
Yeah, because we passed that some time ago. That's what I was just wondering. Why is it taking so long to do that?
To be honest with you, Chair, I was appointed in late 2022, and we were just coming off that line of duty death, and we have the situation where the majority of upper level officers in the department are temporary officers, and we just gave the promotional test. We've been handling a lot of movement
Okay.
around,
Okay.
and it's just something that it didn't rise up on a priority list for me.
Okay. But you're telling us now that it's on the radar screen and you're moving in that
Yeah,
direction?
it never fell off the radar screen. It just might not have moved as fast as it could.
Okay. Because record keeping, I think, is, my opinion, is very important. And I find so often, even here, so often, just trying to find records within council, historic records. I mean, at a time, they stored them down in the sub-basement, and then some of them were destroyed. They were put in an area where there was dampness and water, and, I mean, I think not just council records, but city records themselves, how many of those were lost, and now, thank goodness, we have an archives, where, again, we spent a great deal of time and effort to put that together, city archives. So these historical records are critical in not only for checking and looking at a historical perspective of a building, but just from a historical or history standpoint, so we can check and look at different things. So the 400,000, that's the estimated cost?
Well, first, I wanted to just step back on
Yeah.
the point that you just raised.
Yeah.
The important point about our hard copy historical records
Yeah.
is, in many cases, we are the only agency within the entire city that has access to these records. If you go to, you would think, go to building and housing.
Right.
They don't have these kind of records where you can go back 30, 40, 50 years and see what was at the building. So this is why we're pushing to get these digitized.
Yeah,
This
that's critical.
400,000 figure below, because we do not have a adequate records management system for the Fire Prevention Bureau, the thinking was, since we collaborate extensively with the Building and Housing Department.
Yes.
Building and Housing Department uses the Cella software system. So we figured, well, we'll just go into the Cella system,
Okay.
and then we'll both be on the same system.
Yes.
And it'd be easily pass information back and forth. When we contacted Acela to see, they have a fire prevention module. They gave us this cost. It was over $400,000 to implement this. In my opinion, that is excessive, because every other option I've looked at is far less than that. The other options that we've looked at, it's about $130,000, $140,000 implementation cost with $65,000 to $70,000 annual cost going forward. But for some reason, theirs was $400,000 to implement. I just thought that was excessive. So right now, we are planning to try to get an RFP issued to go out to see all the software systems that are out there so that we can select the best system for what we need.
Because we've authorized the funding.
Not
Did we
for-
not?
Not for this as of yet.
Well, again, I'm trying to jog my memory. When we passed that, I thought there was a dollar amount associated with that.
The legislation that you recently passed was for the digital scanning of the records.
Yes.
That is not included in this. Once we get that, then all of our hard copy records will just be in digital files that we can move around through different
Okay.
software systems.
Okay. So you're telling us right now, you're going to come back to us at some point for some additional funding?
Yes.
Okay. Again, I want to say to the director and to the chief, I think it's very important that we update our files as quickly and as efficiently as we can. So that's something that has to take place. Okay, keep going.
Okay, the next slide is just talking about some issues with the data management by third-party services.
Yeah.
If you think about all of the permits that move back and forth through fire prevention annually for all of the 16,000 plus buildings, there are just tens of thousands of permits. Previously, the
we came before council speaking about a third-party vendor service that would help us manage this,
Yes.
called IRO. There were 2 presentations made. Just to be bluntly honest, I don't think that we properly did our homework on that because we couldn't answer some of the questions that were presented at council at that time. So this service would be of benefit to us, but I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that previously we did come before you with that. We'll probably come before you again, either this service or another one, and we will be able to adequately answer any questions that you have.
Do you know when you're going to be coming to us with that?
I would hope that we could get to you later this year. But-
Okay.
But we definitely want to do our homework before we have you spend time on looking at this.
Okay, well, yeah. If there were reasonable questions raised, then again, I would hope that somebody kept track of what those questions were.
Yes.
And so they can be addressed at the time. So again, I think, again, if there's concerns of council, it's going to be obviously cost and effectiveness of whatever we're implementing, whatever we're purchasing. And can it be integrated with, again, at some point with building and housing? So keep going. What is-
This next slide just talks about the solution, what we believe the global solution for this. The first one is have all legacy archive inspection data digitized and indexed. As I said before, we're working on that.
Yep.
The next one is acquiring a software solution, most likely a cloud-based software solution. That would be the RMS system, the records management system. We spoke about that.
Yeah.
And that picture is an actual picture of when the records were stored in FPB. We have numerous file cabinets like that, and those are all the occupancy files of all the buildings within the city of Cleveland.
And where are those kept at, Chief?
They're currently in the basement of headquarters. We had to relocate them in the basement of headquarters because we ran out of office space.
I hope it's dry down there.
We are trying to keep it dry.
Okay, trying to keep it dry. Okay. Okay. Make sure the sewers are working, okay?
Yes.
Okay, keep going.
The next page is about, once again, that IRO service that we brought before council previously.
Yeah.
One of the questions that came up at that time is how come the Fire Prevention Bureau, instead of having a third-party vendor do that work, why can't we have our internal people do that work and collect the revenue for that? That
Okay.
is just an either-or proposition,
Yeah,
that we have to make the decision which way we want to go.
yeah.
And then
Okay.
the final one is we are going to implement auditing, as I'm doing with all of my workflows now, internal auditing over all FPB workflows, what I
Oh.
think will have immense benefits for us going forward in the future.
Okay. Well, and before I open up the questions, and I have Councilman Starr, Slife, and Kelly, anyone else? You know, there's a growing concern within the body as it pertains to going with outside consultants, growing concern. We talked about that during the budget process. I think if my colleagues would correct me if I'm mistaken here, outside consultants and professional service contracts, I believe, was around $60 million, if I'm correct, during the budget, across all departments and divisions. That's a lot of money. So we're looking at where we can do things in-house more efficiently and more effectively rather than using outside vendors or contractors, because in some cases, as we all know, they have a proprietary control, and then once we get locked into these, we're locked in, and we have nobody else to utilize. So all I'm saying is that wherever we can do things in-house, within the division of fire, I'm urging the administration and you, Chief, and your team to take that into consideration, okay? At this point, I'm opening it up for questions. I have, again, I have Councilman Starr.
Thank you, Chair. I was looking and paying attention to the presentations, and so just to the Chair, to the Chief, overall estimate, how many properties to the City of Cleveland is the fire department required to inspect on an annual basis? To the Chair.
Just over 16,000, sir.
So these 16,000 884 commercial units in the city of Cleveland, those all need to be inspected on an annual basis?
Chair to the councilperson, that is where the confusion comes in when you say needs to be inspected on an annual basis. In all those commercial occupancies, they have permits that they need to get from us. The fire alarm system, if they have a fire alarm system, yes, they have to be inspected on an annual basis. If they have a sprinkler system, yes, they have to be permitted on an annual basis. The standpipe, they have to be permitted on a 5-year basis.
Yep, and I see that. So to the chair,
Yes.
a standpipe inspection every 5 years. Can you explain what a standpipe inspection is and why it's every 5 years?
Chief?
Well, okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Why it's every 5 years, that's what they put in the code, and that's what they deem what they need to make sure it's functional. All right, that's in the state code. What it is, all right, Chief told you about dry or wet systems, okay, depending if there's water or not. So basically what it is, they have to get a third-party contractor. We usually supply a fire engine for the pump. They have to fill the standpipe up, and it has to hold pressure. I think it's like 280 PSI at the top receptacle. That would give us enough water to fight a fire on that floor. And the system has to be able to hold that water or that pressure to pass the test.
Okay, and then, all right, so that means out of these units or these commercial structures, if they're required by the ordinance or the state, you would do it every 5 years for standpipe. But then, when you say that the automatic sprinkler system, alarm system, do we have a breakdown of these 16,800 commercial structures to understand which ones get what and who get annual inspections to the chair?
Chief? Captain?
Chair through to the councilperson. Yes, as through our paperwork, we can tell you 123 Main Street has these systems. This is the last time it's been inspected and like that. But because of the way our data is structured right now, that's not something where I can just run a quick report and give you that information. We'd have to go back and dig through our paperwork and do it. That's the change that I'm saying that we need to make so that we can more effectively query our data and have an awareness of what we're doing.
Thank you. And to the chair, to our staff, can we put a request to receive that information, a breakdown of the 16,884 commercial structures in the city of Cleveland that require either a standpipe inspection, automatic sprinkler, annual inspection, and alarm system annual inspection, so we can get an understanding of what is going on. Because through the chair, I want to ask, how many inspectors do we currently have through the fire department division? Through the chair.
To the chief, to the captain?
Here, you can answer.
Okay. All right, well, all right, in the Bureau, we have, as on the sheet, there are 21 people listed, all right? Out of the 21, there's myself, who I don't do normal inspections, I'm overseeing the department. I have my office manager, who takes care of all the scheduling and invoicing of all the PADs. We have 3 individuals that are for hazmat. They're in charge of all the hazmat permitting throughout the city and all the different businesses. All right. So those, when they do inspections, they do hazmat inspections, EHS inspections on like chemical solvents down on Beltline. That would be an EHS because they have a lot of nasty stuff down there, and they're constantly inspecting those types of structures. We have 3 guys that are plans reviewers, and obviously, as you can see downtown with all the cranes around, the plans reviewers have to keep up on all the plans that are being submitted to keep the construction projects moving along at an equitable pace. We have 1 plans reviewer that's here at Building and Housing who does the overall building to make sure that the systems are being put in place. Then we have one that's an alarm inspector or plans reviewer, and one that's a suppression plans reviewer. And those have to be done with special inspections as well. We actually carry a FPI certification that's a building and housing certification more than fire, so they can be able to commission these systems when they're ready to go in the new buildings. After that, we have it would be 10 inspectors that are broken up We use the battalion system. That's how our fire department works. So there's battalion 1 and 2, there's 3, 3 and 4, or I'm sorry, 1 and 2, there's 4, 3 and 4, there's 3, and 5 and 6, there's 3. And those are the inspectors that do the daily inspections.
But you said, when you're opening statements, you said there were 12 assigned full-time.
Yeah, I'm not done yet.
Okay.
There's 2 others.
Okay.
One inspector that pretty much handles complaints that we get daily because we take care of those as they come in. We take care of it immediately for safety. And then there is a second one that he kind of is like the utility player that bounces around on different alarm inspections or wherever we need someone to fill in. That person, that's the 12.
Okay.
So, thank you. Through the chair. So my question is mainly, do we have the system in place to hold everyone accountable? Because when I hear you say basically it's 20 inspectors that work with you and you have 16,000 buildings. So if I ask the question, can you confirm that the inspection required by ordinance from 2023, were we able to get all of those done, those that need to be annually? And what I mean by that is, from my days working in nonprofit, when we did our food service licenses, you got to get a fire inspection, and everybody fire inspection ended February 1st. So everyone all over the city is trying to get their application in, process the fees, to get everything done. So therefore, I know from the Division of Health and Food Inspection, they got a ton of workload. So when I'm seeing this 16,000 number, and I see 20 inspectors, and then we see that the cost of overtime is around $630,000 from last year, that right there say, okay, you only have 20 people trying to do the work required of 16,000 units. So my question is, through the chair, do we really have the system in place to make sure that we know that all of our buildings are inspected and that we already got the records to be able to keep up with that data to know where we are at throughout the process, through the chair?
Chief, Captain?
Through the chair to the council person. That is one of our challenges that we identified, that we previously came to council about that IRO solution. As you stated, if a building has say a sprinkler system permit that expires on March 1st, do we have the systems on March 2nd to know that they are expired and to take action? Right now, there will be a delay in that. No, we do not. That third-party service is basically a universal data management system. They will comb through all of that data. They send out notifications to all the businesses prior, 3 months, 1 month prior, and then when you hit that date where it expires, then they're sending that notification to us for us to target our inspections. So instead of us trying to target the entire city, we know exactly where we got to inspect each and every day.
And that RO system, through the chair, is up and running now? Or
No.
No.
Through the chair to the council person. That is one of the changes, either IRO or a similar type system that we want to implement.
So through the chair, what's the process of us getting that up and going, through the chair?
We are currently going through the process of coming up with a global plan on how to implement this. The question right now is, do we go with a third-party service, or do we use our internal personnel to replicate what a third-party service would do internally?
Okay, and then my last and final question, Chair. Through the chair, obviously, Chair, do we have enough fire staff to monitor all 16,000, whether we have the system in place, or do we need to look to explore more inspectors and more fire personnel? Through the chair.
Through the chair to the council person, I will never turn down additional staffing. But what I can tell you is currently we do have enough staff to assure the safety of all residents and visitors to the city. If we had additional staffing, could we be more efficient? Yes, we could.
Yeah, so just put to that point and to our staff, could we put a request to see, obviously, the workload, the responsibilities, the job description of fire staff that you have? And if we can explore, do we need to figure out how to add more people in the fire division? Because I think that is very important. When I see 16,000 buildings, locations, and I'm thinking about 20 to 21, because sometimes when you're the top, got a team, sometimes you may have to go out there because there's a lot going on. I don't think we have a system set up to make sure that we can honestly say we have inspected every location on an annual basis based on what they are required based on the ordinance. So I definitely want to see us explore some different options to see what works, and that's all I have, Chair.
Through the chair to the council person, just a final comment. You bring up a very good point that, when you're at the top, you have to step in sometimes to backfill. There was some assertions about looking at the compensation being provided to some of our staff in fire prevention. And that is the reason why you see that overtime burn in there. The fire marshal is the backstop of all of our fire prevention activities. So when we have to be on site for whatever, and for personal reasons, for scheduling reasons, we don't have an inspector available, the fire marshal has to step in and fill that vacancy. So that's the only point I wanted to make with that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I have Councilman Slight, but he's asked to get passed over for a moment. Councilman Kelly.
Thank you, Dean. Through the chair, to the chief. Do you say you have one inspector now with the building?
No.
With building?
Through the chair to the council person, could you repeat that?
You have a fire inspector with building and housing now, full-time, you said here?
Through the chair to the council person, they're not full-time. They work a couple days a week with building housing.
Okay, well, I thank you for that. I think now with what we're doing with landlords and whatnot, maybe you need to look at having even more than one full-time. But I appreciate it. How long has that fella or that lady been working there?
That's Lieutenant Alexiak. He's been working with building and housing since 2020, I believe.
Okay.
He started working as Lieutenant Veselski was in that position before, and he was getting ready to retire, and that's when Lieutenant Alexiak started. At that point, when Veselski retired, Alexiak was our only plans reviewer, so everything fell on him, the alarms, the sprinklers, and so forth, and, we were getting behind because, hey, one person could do so much, right? So we put together a plans review class that we held at our academy. We had 9 of our members take the course, 5 from building and housing, a couple came from the airport, and several others from other departments around Cleveland, our suburbs, attended the course at our academy, and that provided us with 2 more certified plans reviewers. And that's where we split it up to 1 with building, 1 with alarm, 1 with suppression, and that alone just got us right into where we needed to be.
Thank you for that. With what we're ramping up with the runners now, I would hope that, as the dean always says, come to us if you need more, because that person will be crucial with the inspections. So thank you.
Through the chair to the council person, just one additional comment. Those 2 additional plans reviewers, those were additional personnel added to the Fire Prevention Bureau. We approached the administration with that request because we were getting behind in reviewing occupancy permits and was holding up development, and administration gave the division additional funding to add those 2 positions to the Bureau. So we didn't pull positions. They were doing inspections, and now they're doing plans review. These were 2 additional people that the administration gave us funding to add to the Fire Prevention Bureau.
Is that it? Okay. In the chairman's absence, I have been put in charge, so this is my moment, I suppose. I'm also next on the list, and then it'll be Councilwoman Gray, and then I don't know if Councilwoman House-Jones would like to be on the list, just let me know. And we do have some public comment as well. And I apologize for having to step out, and I apologize if any of my questions are repetitive. But I guess sort of an elephant in the room, there was the news report, and some of the quotes out of there was there's no recent records, no regular records tied to regular safety inspections. So, Chief, you noted that in these high-rise buildings, there are at least 3 types of regular inspections, the standpipe, the alarm, the third one that I'm having to look at my cursive to remember. I guess the question is, and you had touched on Acela briefly, as Acela is, for those listening, sort of a permit interface that interdepartmental permit interface that the city has started to use. Is the issue simply that those routine inspections aren't easily identified in some public portal? Analogous to if I want to look up a building inspection violation from the Department of Building and Housing, I can type in 100 Main Street and it'll pop up. Is this a challenge of just needing to get that information out through some sort of interface to let people see that these things are happening?
To the chair, first, the records for the Division of Fire are not on any public-facing portal. With this, the issue with the media issue requesting the records, this was an issue of the public records request. I had a conversation with the reporter just before this hearing. The reporter was requesting documents by title and type that we don't have. So the documents that the information that they were looking for, they were getting no responsive records. When they first started putting these requests in, I sent a communication to the media outlet stating, because at that time, one of the records disclosures that we were doing was too large to put on the public records portal, so we put it on a bunch of jump drives, and they would have to come into fire headquarters to pick it up. And I sent a message telling them that when they come into fire headquarters, I would like to meet with them and sit down with them, because I kind of knew that was going on. They chose not to take advantage of that, and then they subsequent just kept requesting different records, and it was just, they were just missing each other. You're requesting this record type, we don't have a record like that. There is, when a public records request come in, it's not a conversation. It's you requested this record, do you have it or do you not? No, we do not have it. That's it.
Okay.
Now, on the way we keep records, that is the challenge that I presented in this PowerPoint, that we have to get better at the way we organize our records, the way we retain our records, and the way we report out on our records. Additionally, in our internal Fire Prevention Bureau policies, this was in 2018, the Fire Prevention Bureau, or the division itself, went after a community risk reduction grant. That's also the time when they were going after the IRO third-party service. In preparation to that, we changed our internal policies for fire prevention to align some record types, some operations, some building designations. So when you hear maximum risk, that comes from that. But when we failed to get the legislation required, and we even did not end up getting that grant, we never did the housework of changing our policies back to what we were actually doing. Now, I'm chief now, that's a fault on me. We are reviewing that to do this global reorganization. So when the media started requesting records, they also request our policy documents, and they were requesting policy documents that were in there that we never implemented. So there are no records existing for those documents.
Gotcha. So thank you. And as we move towards digitizing and all these things, is some element of citizen accessibility part of that conversation? That is there a goal, or is there a limitation in our ability to make routine, I'll call them routine fire inspections, searchable, by the average person?
To the chair, I have had some brief conversations over the past few months with Director Crow. And yes, we want to make as much of our record keeping possible public facing, because that reduces our workload. When people want to request public records requests, they can just go to the portal.
Okay.
So as we implement these new systems, hopefully, and we do this reorganization, we're always looking at that these records will be disclosed to the public. So what format do they have to be in, so when they see them, it makes sense to them?
Gotcha.
To the chair, if I can,
Go ahead.
kind of piggyback off the chief of council member Slav-Thelmine, I think as from a public safety standpoint, not just with the Division of Fire, but just from a public safety standpoint, part of my responsibility and part of the things I want to do is make sure we make as much record public facing as possible. And that's working with Director Crow, as Chief Luke just mentioned, so we can again get as many records public facing as we can. And that's going to be a process.
Okay, of course. Couple more quick questions. Through the chair, you noted 7 stories and above is a high-rise, and then also we do rental properties because there's a money-making component to it. Where does that kick in? I'm assuming you're not obviously going every up and down double, probably like a 4-unit. Is there a unit count that kicks in kind of these regular inspections, or is it the height of the building?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the height of the building. Obviously, the 7 stories above that are considered high-rise, but then there's another 16,563 buildings on that list that are from 1 story all the way up to 6. Now, depending on the 6 stories and below, even if there are apartment buildings, some of those are more considered on the residential end. So we don't inspect those like you would one that is a high rise. Okay, it's 2 different categories.
Gotcha.
And a lot of those are building and housing. Now, we get complaints, and sometimes it's more building and housing issues, but we work together to try to make sure that we cover all bases.
Gotcha. And then thank you. My final 2 questions. I'm assuming that the fees that are collected, there was a slide for it. Within the budget, there's $1 million line item for licenses and permits. I would assume that that's where that revenue comes back into the Division of Fire.
Through the chair to the council person, that revenue goes into the general fund.
Okay. Yes, but having, yes, that answers my question. I guess the follow-up question to that is, if there's 21 uniformed plus 2 civilian, rough math, I mean, we're talking probably costs $2.5 million just to staff the entire unit, and our projected revenue off of the charges for service essentially is about $1 million. Remind me, when the administration came on board, there were a lot of conversations about needing to update our fee schedules, and I'm wondering if this fee schedule has been included. Are we charging an appropriate rate, and really should this be closer to a self-sustaining unit as much as possible? Do we need to update these fee schedules?
Through the chair to the council person, you're absolutely correct. As part of once again, our reorganization, we already have a proposed update for our fees and permit schedules. The fire marshal did a review of comparable cities of size and composition, came up with the median fees that they are currently charging. I believe our current fee schedule is at least 2 to 3 decades old. And also, we have to do updated adoption of the fire code. We operate under the state fire code. If you look in the city ordinances, you will see fire code references in there. As the state updates their fire code, we also have to bring that into the city ordinances. And we've been a little lax on doing that.
Okay, then the follow-up question to that, and I'll be done, is there a timeline for that update to the fire code and a timeline for like a deeper discussion on maybe bringing our fees to more 2024 levels?
Through the chair to the council person, we have our proposal now. There's a little bit of work needs to be done. We'll work through the safety director to then bring that through you to see when we can get a time frame when we can bring it to you.
Okay. I only ask Chair because I'm always, these are opportunities where I want to make sure we're not leaving revenue on the table and essentially subsidizing things that could be used. We could be paving another street because we're having to subsidize something when we're just charging below market
Who
fees.
is the law director assigned there? Do you have a law director assigned? Assistant law director?
It's Jacobson, I believe.
No, that's who you work with.
That's what I believe.
To the chair, we'll check and get your name.
Especially as it pertains to state, because if we don't upgrade based on the state enhancements or changes, if there are fines or penalties, we're not going to receive that. The state would receive that.
That's correct. Through the chair, that's correct.
So we need to update those records, because I'm assuming those are critical. And so I would say, again, to the safety director, the law department needs to be engaged with you guys as soon as possible to do that.
To the chair, I agree, but the responsibility for that, I'll have to say, should fall mainly on a division. because we interact with those codes on a daily basis.
Right.
So we would have the awareness that a new code has come
And
out.
you should be notifying the law department that
Yes.
this is what needs to be changed and enhanced, because we want to make sure that we are in compliance. And let's face it, in the world in which we live, there's technology changes, we're dealing with different types of substances, chemicals, et cetera. I mean, and we want to make sure that our fire codes are up to date, especially with regard to state statutes. So there's no doubt about that. It's about safety for our men and women in fire and also for our citizens. Councilman Slife, you have any other questions? Okay, I have Councilwoman Gray.
Thank you, Chair. I just have one question, and a good morning/afternoon to the committee. And I know we have guests waiting to discuss their issues and concerns, but I just have one question from the constituents in Ward 4/Ward 5 about the Station 26 and 41 that's being merged now on 93rd, like 89th and Kinsma. Their concern, they had one question for me to ask. Their concern is, since this 26 and 41 is being merged over on 89th and Kinsma, which is Ward 6, their concern is the timing of the fire station, the firefighters, where the timing of that, timing of like a fire would happen maybe somewhere on Buckeye, whereas they could get there in 2 minutes. Now, since they moving on 89th, they might get there in 4 minutes, and that'll make a difference of the wear off of the place of the house or the property getting burnt down.
Sure.
So, in addition to that question, there wasn't a public meeting for them to come to, so they can voice their opinion of not having these two stations moved out of the vicinity where they are, and they just wanted to have the comfortability of knowing that because of this move, and it's still between Ward 4 and because it's still between Ward 4 and 5, the timing of the service.
Well, this is the first I'm hearing about it, too. So explain to us what's transpiring. It's the first I'm aware of it, yeah.
Yeah,
First
yeah,
I've-
this been going on before I came council.
Yeah, I'm
This was going on before I came council, and that, I was in those meetings, Chair, to the committee. I was in some meetings before I came council when this decision was being discussed about the move between 26 and 41 over to 89th and Kinsma. But since this has now happened, because the building is already been renovated, and it's kind of nice, I have to say, but it still is in the vicinity, the residents have great concern of the timing of the fire station, of the attention of the service. If a house can get burned down in 4 minutes, and it could be saved in 2 minutes.
Chief?
If I'm asking the question properly.
So educated, not only those of us at the table, but the viewing public. So you had 2 stations and one's being closed or has been closed?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Through the chair to the councilperson, not yet. We have a station on 116th next to the park. We also have a station at 79th and Kinsman.
Okay.
And then we have a brand-new station being built at right at almost,
89th,
yeah,
89th in,
89th
like
and Kinsman.
91st in Kinsman,
Right.
that's across from McDonald's.
Yes, exactly. When they were looking at the planning of seeing where they wanted to, which station they wanted to replace, and where there was land to build a new station, our options was limited to find a location. Only one location was found. When we did that, there was a response time study showing the impact that would have to the response time for both locations. Both locations showed a response time impact under 1 minute. So it won't be between 2 and 4 minutes. It'll be under 1 minute, depending on where the incident comes up. The largest impact to the community, I would say, which we did bring up, is the station on 116th abuts right up against the park.
Yes.
And that station gets a lot of walk-in business, either reporting incidents or just coming over to the station just to say hi, just to bring their kids over. And where the new station is, it's on the other side of 93rd, which is a high traffic lane.
It's high traffic
I
light.
think it's going to dramatically decrease the walk-in capability.
Okay.
But as far as the response time, there will be a response time impact, but I believe it will be neutral between the two stations because from some places where our response time will increase by under a minute because of where the station is situated, for this incident, our response time will decrease by a minute because we're closer to where the incident is at.
So what house will close?
Fire Station 26 and Fire Station 41. They're being combined into one station.
And those are, so which is the one next to the park?
That's Fire Station 41.
41.
In that
It's a
station,
Ward 4.
in that station, we have one fire engine, one fire pumper
Yeah.
coming out that station. There's also an EMS unit that's stationed there, but the EMS unit is planned to remain there.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, great. Great to know.
So then, and then what you're going to do, dispose of the properties, the other property?
To the chair, both stations will retain the property of the city from the conversations I've been in.
Okay.
Fire Station 41, as I said, they're still to have the EMS unit stationed there.
Yeah.
And for the remainder of the station, we are sorely in need of storage capacity in public safety. We'll use that station as a storage capacity for apparatus and supplemental equipment.
Okay, my question is, when we build a new station, why wouldn't we have automatically assumed that we're going to put EMS in there as well?
The new station that is being built
Yeah.
was built with an EMS bay built into it.
Okay,
So I'm talking out of my realm here, but there's a possibility where you'll have an EMS unit out of 41.
Yes.
And there'll also be one out of the new station.
okay.
But
I-
the plans for the station was built for a specific EMS bay and
Yes.
specific EMS quarters in
Okay.
the station.
Yeah, I think, again, when we're building new houses, we've got to make sure that the houses are built with the thought of having an EMS unit based out of there. We want,
Yes.
you know, to spend the amount of money we do to build new houses here, we'll make sure that they're fully equipped and that they're set up in a way where we can house EMS if we need to. So I just want to make sure that's the case. Council lady, any additional
No,
questions?
that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Councilwoman House Jones.
Thank you. Good morning. Through the chair to the team here. Just a quick question. In listening to the presentation, where do we capture the information as it relates to the sign-offs for, I believe it's the fire marshal when it comes to new builds? Was that in this or, like, I don't?
Okay.
Captain?
Okay, so like what's not going on downtown with all the different construction sites and all that?
So there have been a couple of instances through the chair to the team where I've had property owners contact me myself because it has been taking extremely long, and I'm saying like weeks, you know what I'm saying, to get someone to come out. It's some type of paper, it was a gold paper.
Okay, I could explain,
this,
that for you.
that situation.
Okay, so here's what it is. When there's a new construction or changes in an occupancy, they pull building permits, and they get a thing called the goldenrod. That's your paper you're talking about, okay? The part of that we do if there's a suppression or if there's an alarm system, we do an inspection on those then, and those inspectors sign off on that paper on the backside. The last thing that happens before the occupancy certificate is issued is we do a life safety. But before that can happen, all the other signatures have to be on the form. So if you do electrical work or HVAC work, there's all those inspections that building and housing do. And until there's signatures from all those different permits are signed off that they're complete, because the life safety is supposed to be the last walkthrough. We're going through to make sure that everything's the way it's supposed to be. And when we walk out the door, it should open up for business. As we walk out, the business should walk in. And a lot of times when they call us for the life safeties and we go out, they don't have their paperwork completed, their inspections aren't done. We'll walk in and they haven't had their alarm, but they think they're gonna speed the process up to get the occupancy and get open. So they try to push that inspection up faster, and they're not ready for it. Usually the general contractor should call us to set up that inspection. Now, as far as if someone called me today that they needed a life safety, they'd have it today. we'd send somebody right over. So when people say it's taking weeks, there's probably something else involved that needs to get done first before we can do that inspection. And that's what I've seen in the past.
So through the chair,
Yes.
to the team here, where is that reflected? How many of those, what is our current, annual request for these sign-off and building?
Yeah, that would be well, that building and housing would probably have this stat when they'd have a change in occupancy, because then we would have to do a life safety inspection at that time.
But I'm just trying to figure out, so that's not reported here.
Yeah, I don't think that's reflected
But that
in
is a
the
part,
PowerPoint.
just point of clarification, that is a part of the work that the team does, correct?
To Chair, to council member, that's
Yeah, and
correct.
so just trying to, he's asking this question, just trying to understand capacity. And again, as we look at just the whole idea of the paper and the signatures, I mean, I think we can be much more effective and much more efficient with people's time in updating our system. So I guess a point through the chair to the team here, have you all been a part of any conversations of the updating of this process? Because
No, well, that's Acela. They put all that information into Acela, and we use Acela for that purpose as well.
But
what we're talking about is more of a building and housing. They create the goldenrod, and we're just a part of that process. Once we do our life safety, that's when the certificate of occupancy will be issued from building and housing.
Through the chair to the council person, that's why, I don't know if you experienced this, anytime, like I get a call or the fire marshal gets a call about either an occupancy permit or even a complaint, at least half the times, the issue is probably with building and housing and not with us, meaning building and housing has to take care of the issue and not us, but we try to be the bridge to building housing. We'll contact building housing and then walk through what the resolve is. Because a lot of our work is a collaboration between us and building housing.
okay, well, I'll just request, at least from your perspective, what is the capacity as far as these building occupants that you have to sign off on and do inspections, because that is in addition to all of this other stuff. And if we are knowing that we have some capacity issues, I think that information, you just would really be helpful and really trying to get a better understanding of how we are going to embrace the use of technology to operate much more efficiently, because it just takes too long to get stuff done. That's all. So that's that. And then I do have another question. I know more probably a statement when the conversation when it talks about policies. So I am coming from the framework of we are policymakers. And so as these conversations are happening about the numerous updates that are being made to state laws, things of that nature, I would offer to the chairperson that we need to work and make sure that there is partnership with the actual council members to lead, help to be a part of this, and not just, there's been a tendency to just put stuff in the hands of the lawyers and things of that nature, which is nice, but that's not, again, that's not people's constitutional things. Like, you put it, lawyers' job is to put things in place according to, constitutional frameworks, but actually understanding intent should be coming from us as council members, the legislators. And so I would respectfully request that if there are some people who have an interest, but that should just be the work of council in general, of when these policy decisions are happening, to have active presentation and not just be thrown something, as it has been my experience. I can only talk about my experience these last 2 years, which is, it's very new, I understand, but because we're talking about some substantial updates of things that have been decades old, it probably would be helpful to have some representation, a part of that process, so that we can get things done and update our codes appropriately.
Through the chair to the council person, I agree wholeheartedly. That's why I stated we have to take more ownership of becoming aware of what's going on at the state level. We get focused into our daily activities, inspections, code compliance, and that, and changes that happen at the state level that we need to be aware of as they occur instead of well after they occur.
Yeah, and I would say through the chair to the chief, in that regards, I think that's one of the things, if we come up with processes just automatically, because there are things that are happening for state policy, not just with yours, with all of our departments, right? And if we have more routine policy updates, we can be much more systematic and intentional to ensuring that our policies are reflective, so that we can have the necessary alignment when it comes to our things. That's the offerings. In addition to fire, we need to do that for many of the various other departments that are impacted by state policy changes.
Thank you, Councilor. And again, with regard to changes, because I know they've been looking at, again, rail safety. So I want to make sure that if there's any enhancements that as it pertains to rail safety coming through the city of Cleveland, I want to make sure that our code reflects that. But again, if you bring that to us, an explanation as to why this is taking place, we need to make sure that we're on top of everything. My last question before we have two citizens that here want to comment. The issue with the Councilwoman House Jones brought up with CFOs, I just had two situations in my own ward. Illegal party centers, event centers opened up with no CFOs. And I'm finding this is, I'm saying this to the director as well, I find this is a growing problem with these, I don't know what you want to refer, in the day we would call them cheat spots. Now they want to call themselves event centers. And I want to thank the 5th District, who just shut down two of them in the 5th, one in Councilman Harrison's ward, one in my ward. But it goes back to this, they're going into locations and they're just operating without any permits. And it's trying to figure out who's on first and who's on second here. So within your shop, is there a specific person, Chief, or to the captain that works on CFOs?
Okay, so the problem that
Yep.
you're talking about, I work with different districts. When a place like this comes up, they usually email me.
Okay.
And then what we do is I'll contact the chief building officer and inform him of the situation. And then what we do is we usually do like a task force. And we will go and respond there during after hours whenever they're
Yep.
open, and we do an on-site inspection at that time.
Okay.
And then if they don't have the proper certificate of occupancy, permitting that they should have, entertainment licensing, whatever they're deficient
Yes.
in, okay, we give them the information how they can attain what they need. But then in those cases, a lot of times they don't have their suppression system that's required for that type of establishment or an alarm system. So we usually cease use them for hazard.
Okay.
And then going forward, we give them all the information they need to be able
Yes.
to become legitimate.
Okay.
And then it's in their court to try to do
Okay,
that.
so what I'm asking of you, direct an email all council members that if there's a question pertaining to illegal operations, CFO, event centers, party centers, this is who we contact.
Yes, you can call me.
I would appreciate that to go out because that would be very helpful because up to this point, council members have been notifying building and housing, and sometimes it takes time. But I think if fire says, we got a problem out here, we're going to get a faster
Yeah,
response. Because
absolutely.
again, there was just, some of these places were just packed with people. And so again, and my last point is this question. When there is a fire, commercial structure, residential structure, who makes the call as it pertains to a forthwith?
Through the chair, the incident commander on scene of that incident makes a determination whether the structure is deemed unsafe and can't have residents remain in there.
Right.
And then he will put in a request for a forthwith.
And that goes to building and housing?
Yes, it goes to building and housing. There are some caveats to that. Say if we get a structure fire and, God forbid, we have a fatality.
Yes.
fire investigation unit has to go out, and an
Yeah.
investigation has to complete
Okay.
before they can do the demolition.
Okay.
But if we get a forthwith demolition request, we get it down at headquarters, and it goes right over to building and housing.
But if a structure is just hazardous, let's say it's OV&V, what we call open, vacant, and vandalized, fire would not necessarily be involved in that, would you not?
The way that we've handled it, if, we're not talking about an
Right.
incident or any fires,
Yes.
but on several occasions, I've had calls from city council people to say they got this structure in their ward
Yes.
that they feel is dangerous. We'll send one of our battalion commanders out there to look at it.
Okay.
And then if they deem it's also, if they agree, then we put the demolition request in with building and housing.
Okay, because I think part of our challenge is here, a structure might not be fire damage, but in its proximity to adjacent structure, if it's open, vacant, and vandalized, and there's a continuing concern there, I'm really alarmed by the fact that some of these structures just sit, and they just sit, and they just sit, and nothing ever seems to happen to them, and yet the people who are living next to them, every time they go to bed at night, they're in a state of panic or fear of what's going to happen to this structure next door as it pertains to their home or their property. So, again, we all expect building and housing with the recent legislation we passed to be more aggressive as it pertains to code enforcement. Time will tell. So on that note, without any further questions of the committee, I want to thank the chief for your presentation, your PowerPoint, your handout. It's been very helpful to us. I hope you can get this record management system up online, which I think is very important and critical, and I say that to the director as well. And at this point, we have two citizens in attendance who want to speak to us briefly. I'm going to ask if they are here in attendance, and I believe Ms. Campbell, who is here. Is Ms. Campbell here? Please come to the table. And she wants to talk about safety, and I would ask the director to remain. Sure. And then following her will be Ms. Pamela Pinckney, Reverend Pamela Pinckney. Ms. Campbell, you have 3 minutes to address the body. Welcome.
All of you all.
Yes. And tell us where you're from.
Hi, how are you all? I'm actually from Georgia. I'm
Okay.
a native of the South. But I live in Ward 7. I've been in Ward 7 for like 30 years under Fannie Lewis and then T.J. Dow and then Bashir and then Councilwoman Stephanie House. I'm a proud citizen for Ward 7.
Wonderful.
I came on behalf of Ms. Gray. I'm not a real big speaker. I'm a little
That's
shy.
all right.
But I'll
You
get
just
over it.
take your time.
But I had a funeral to go to, which it was one of my family member. And she told me that she believed that it would be some fighting there. So with me, I went into safety mode, and I says, well, I am going to call and see what I can do. The funeral is at Chapel of Peace on Buckeye. So when I called Mr. Wanton, he said to call Miss Gray. So I called Miss Gray, and now Miss Gray asked me and told me what to do. So the funeral was February the 17th. And I believe there was a cop there. They came. So the family members, I would say they was a little difficult. So I didn't want any problems. So what I did, I asked the family member, can I please call the, and talk about this here? She says, yes, Brenda. So Miss Gray had a police officer at the funeral home.
Yes.
I didn't get a chance to talk to him and thank whoever came, woman or man, to say thank you for coming out. So I am so appreciative of them coming out, being safe and keeping us safe in the neighborhood. So that is what I believe in, safety. Safety is first to me.
Yes.
Because I grew up with a big family, and some people don't always have sisters and brothers. I was safe because of my brothers and also safe because of the police. So with that being said, I think we all should reach out to avoid a problem in the neighborhood to try to, get into safety for the people and for the constituents.
Yes.
That's what I believe in, being safe.
Okay.
I don't mind calling the police. Some of the police in Ward 7 that come in and, patrol the neighborhood. They know me.
Yes.
Because I'm the one, I don't mind calling the police. I will look out my window. And if I see something wrong, I am going to call the police.
Well, and you know what? We appreciate proactive residents. We appreciate that. And I wish we had more proactive residents in our city. So often I've heard the safety director and the chief and other officials say, if you see something, say something. And if we had more people doing that and being neighborly and looking out for one another, and I think it's pretty tragic today that at funeral services that we have to have police officers.
Yes.
I think it's pretty sad. And there's some undertakers, some funeral funeral directors who will not even I'm trying to how to describe this. They will not even make the arrangements for some individuals because of the fear of violence at their facility, especially if it's an act of violence. The victim is an act of gun violence. Some undertakers will not even take that individual, which is pretty sad and tragic. But that's the reality we're confronted with today. But again, I appreciate you coming to the table and thanking the council lady and thanking the Division of Police for the work that they did. Because you know what? I try to thank our men and women in blue all the time. They're dealing with terrible situations. And again, just the thought that you have to have police at a funeral says a whole lot in itself. So again, I appreciate you coming to the table and expressing your viewpoints and your opinion. Council lady?
Yes, I just want to say, I want to thank Ms. Campbell. When she did call me, I just want to also show thanks to Officer Jones from the 4th District. She is one of now Commander Valentino assistants at 4th District, and that's who I contact Officer Jones. And Officer Jones said, just give me Ms. Campbell's number, and I will speak to her, and I will personally go to the funeral before the funeral time to ensure that if those family members do come, they will see presence. So I just want to give honor and thanks to Officer Jones at 4th District that got in touch with Ms. Campbell. And I also want to thank my Councilwoman House to show that prevention that we've been working on and that was passed. This is what we have been talking about. And like you say, see something, say something. And this is part of the prevention, intervention ordinance that was passed to show that this is how we have to coordinate together and not be afraid, but this is how it works. Once we start speaking up in our community and calling all the right people to work together, this is how we can prevent an incident of violence, an incident of killing, an incident of another funeral on top of a funeral that we have seen on the news across this nation. This is how we have to work together to save our community and save our young people and save everyone involved. So thank you, Ms. Campbell.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in
Thank
to speak on this. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience waiting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Reverend Pamela Pinckney.
Good afternoon,
Welcome,
everyone.
Reverend.
Before I proceed with my concerns pertaining to the what's been at the table this morning and afternoon, I need to make a very general statement to anyone who's watching. This is the city of Cleveland. And what took place here in Cleveland City Council meeting 3 weeks ago is not going to be tolerated. That was not activism. It was not constitutional. It was terrorism. And if those people come back in our council meetings and they conduct themselves in that fashion, they need to be treated like terrorists. To block our exits so our council members cannot leave the building, to stand up and disrupt our meeting and chant in a foreign language, and then threaten and use profanity to our president of our city council and to speak to our mayor and disrespect our city, that is not to be tolerated. And I pray and I ask director that you get whoever you need and director of the safety and the fire to do what needs to be done. I could not get in the building, and we couldn't get out of here. That's a blatant disrespect for our leadership, and we're not going to have it. What I wanted to say today, because I don't have time either, is, first of all, I would like to see the director to maintain the seat, not as an interim director, but as the permanent director for the safety division. I am concerned. The Bible says that it won't be water but fire next time. God told Noah that because he was warning people and they didn't want to listen. I'm concerned we're headed for a racial and religious war, through the chair to everyone in this room. I'm very concerned about that. I'm also very concerned about the fact that one of the mental health agencies is generating information, teaching people how to smoke crystal meth safely and how to smoke cocaine safely. The centers, mental health agency. I'm also concerned when I hear you speaking at this table today about whether the church is in compliance with infrastructure for safety, for fire and policing. Because we have to do this together. I'm also with preventive measures. I've also been asking for a Christian flag to be put on this building because we're not having terrorism in the city of Cleveland. We're not tolerating it. This is a Christian city, a Christian nation, and we're not going to put up with it. I'd like to know if you would have, through the chair, to the full council and others, would you please provide funding, resources for the owners of these properties so that if there is a violation, they will have somewhere to go to avoid prison and all those types of things. And I'm going to stop with that for right now. Okay. Oh, when I came in, I heard you talking about animals. Through the chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I would like for you to look at how these pit bulls are being used as weapons. That's not acceptable. And all this violence in voting. Before I leave, I would like to bring something to your attention because people were afraid of me. And when I spoke in city council meeting on Monday, it's because people have been afraid of me. I reported abuse. I fell through the cracks of the system. And there's a misnomer. There's a difference between mental abuse and mental illness. I have been a victim of mental abuse, and a mental illness label was put on me. But I heard a leader in this country one time state that people who are mentally ill are dangerous, should be considered dangerous. Some people are mentally ill because of danger, and that's a horrible thing and a horrible label to say about anybody. Yes. As you do write policies, think about what we say about people. Think about how we label people, how we define people. Because even my situation now, Director Drummond, is still not in proper perspective. I still am displaced with not a place to live effectively, with my parents concerned about my safety. And I'm concerned. Okay. What happened at this council meeting 3 weeks ago? Do you know that was more than a safety hazard, because on this past Monday, those people barricaded the hallway again, pulled in a tow dolly with food on it, and were down there eating. And they can't do that in the county administration building. They can't do that in Pepper Pike. They can't do that in Bracknell. And Council Chairperson, that needs to be addressed, and we're not tolerating it. Thank you.
Reverend, I can only say this, that I understand that the city, the administration, and council leadership are looking at what has transpired here on Monday nights. I don't have to say to you that there are many residents who've watched on Channel 20, this access channel, what has taken place on Monday nights, and have been very upset about it.
One thing I'm concerned about, Chairperson, is it's crazy because the media didn't show that. The media didn't address that. The media didn't feature that.
Yeah.
But the media would feature if there was some foolishness going on around here. But your lives were at stake. I don't care about me because I'm not worried about anybody doing anything to me. I'm concerned about you all having families and somebody being bold enough to not only disrupt our meetings and disrupt your safety,
Yeah.
but come down here and chant in a foreign language. In the Bible, it says if someone speaks in a foreign tongue, somebody's supposed to translate it. Whatever they said, they went out the room on the outskirts of the doors and blocked the exit so we couldn't leave this building.
Well, all I can say is this, and I say this to the safety director as well. We are not going to let anyone
Bully you.
regardless of what their faith, what their religion, their nationality, ethnic origin, whatever the case may be. We're not going to let anybody intimidate members of city council or the public that comes down here from our community. We're not going to let anybody intimidate us.
They have signs. You all have signs posted out here. They are not to bring in posters.
So,
they're not to do certain things.
it's gonna-
and it's not constitutional. And it's not a peaceful
Okay.
assembly what
So
they're doing.
all I can tell you is this, is that the administration, the safety director is aware of the situation, the chief of police is aware of the situation, council president's aware, and I believe the mayor is aware because obviously he's been the target of some of this as members of council have been. So at the end of the day, we're not going to be intimidated by anyone, by any group. We're here to do the public's business. This is the public's house. City Hall.
Absolutely.
Is the public's house. And we're not going to let anybody disrupt us, intimidate us, scare us, et cetera. So that's all I can tell you. I thank you for your comments at the
I'm out of the box, so I can speak for you. But they threatened me Monday, and I told them I'm not worried about you. I think you better back up. But you're not. You all are not only my council representatives.
Yeah.
You're my friends.
If you are threatened, Reverend Pinckney, I would urge you to file a complaint with the police department as well. Thank you for your.
And they were filming me also.
Thank you very much. The committee is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, had a question? Yes.
You
Okay,
know,
go
anyway, so this is what I'll say this. I will just reiterate, the city of Cleveland, we are a open and welcoming city for all faiths and religion.
Right.
And so I want to keep that in mind. And yes, I say that fully as a Christian, but, you know, I also represent those who, you know, are atheists. I represent those who are Muslim, of Muslim faith. And I would be remiss if to let, especially my constituents, know that you are welcome in this city. And regardless of people's faith and all that type of stuff, everyone is welcome.
Right.
And for those who are able to speak a foreign language, that is a gift, because unfortunately, like other countries, there are other people who live in our country who are multilingual, bilingual, and we need to respect that and maybe take a foreign
That's
language.
not what I was
Listen,
saying at all. And you know that's not what I was saying.
Again, I'm putting on the record. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's
And
not
then
what I was
also-
saying. What I'm
and then
saying, what I'm
again,
saying is
Miss
what I mean.
Pickney.
Nobody's
Mrs.
gonna come
Pickney,
down here. I don't
Mrs.
care
Pickney,
what your religion is.
again,
Disrespecting
Mrs. Pickney,
us.
Thank you.
Mrs. Pickney, thank you very much.
Reverend Pinckney.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
comments.
Thank you.
And then also, as we use, like I said, we are in a time where there is a lot going on, that things have been going on for generations, and people, there are a lot of emotions, and I think many of us need to be really mindful of how we use words in our language to put labels on people during this time, and really trying to work to see how we can all come together to try to work towards peace. It is helpful and it is required of us, specifically those who are leaders, not to, you know, create things of division, but if there are opportunities to at least try to help neutralize situations and not stoke and add to the fire. So
Thank you.
that's what I'm adding to this
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Councilor. Director, you got a final
Chair,
comment?
if I can, I appreciate it. Thank you. Appreciate everyone's comments. I just want to make sure folks understand from a public safety standpoint that we're here to protect the rights of everyone. We're going to make sure it's a safe environment for everyone at the council meetings and other places. And again, respecting and protecting the constitutional rights for everyone. Just
That's
want
right.
to put that on the table.
Thank you. Thank you. Committee stands adjourned. Thank you.
Director,